and we are live.
Hey everybody, it's Dave with DII. We're getting started a little bit late today. It's right after 1. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, do it now. The subscribe button is over here. Underneath on my left, your right I believe. Red subscribe button, click it, subscribe to the channel, like, and subscribe. Also, if you haven't been to our website, go to davesislandinstruments.com. We have all sorts of information about handpans, ukuleles, and steel drums. So take a look. Today we're just going to be doing a regular old handpan class, and so it's going to be really fun. Today we had some people here in the store for our first in-person class that we've had for a while, and in fact, they're still here. So they're going to be able to participate live a little bit here.
Audience participation.
Yep. So as always, if you guys have any questions out there in the YouTube universe, feel free to put them into the comments section. You're more than welcome to ask any kind of question you want. We do our best to answer those live while you're watching, so that you get some instant feedback. We really like answering those questions. We really love the feedback and the interaction. So feel free to put any kind of comment in there as long as it's appropriate, right? So on topic, please. Anyway, so I'm Dave of Dave's Island Instruments. I'm the one who makes the steel drum or handpans here at DII. Daniel's also off to the left over here, so there's his hand. Here's Daniel. He's running the camera today. But he also helps people out here at DII and frequently takes phone calls and that sort of thing. All right, so we're going to get started. Basic questions about handpan, and so the live audience today might have some really good, just off the top questions about handpans, especially with it been, right?
Yeah.
So you said it was your first time experiencing handpan today.
Yeah.
Said you saw some videos.
Yeah.
Tell us, where was the first time that you saw a handpan or that sort of thing?
First time I saw a handpan was at a sound bath that I
Okay.
was at, and I was absolutely mesmerized. And so ended up talking with the musician at the end and told me what it was. And so at that point I started YouTubing handpans, and the rest is history.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Sound baths. A lot of people are doing sound baths these days and using the handpans. Absolutely. How about yourself, Tanya?
A friend of mine, an ex-boyfriend, ended up getting one. Him and his wife got one. And they live out in Colorado or something.
Okay. Yeah.
And even though he spent like a good $700-800, and it's pretty cheap for handpans.
Yeah.
I was like, I want one. I want one.
Yeah. Handpans definitely a lot of fun.
And
So.
then I found you guys in the like Ben said, rest is history.
Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Here we are. Yeah. So you guys are both somewhat local, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's nice that you're so local to the shop, because some people are out in the boonies, right? And they don't have a place to come to experience them. A lot of it's just research online, and then they just point and click and hope for the best. So I'm glad you guys are here. I'm glad you guys have the ability to do that. Do you have any questions about handpans themselves, like how they're built, made, tuned?
Yeah, like how often, I suppose it would depend on how often you play, but how often would you say a tuning needs to take place depending on, the frequency you're playing at?
Okay, yeah, great question. A lot of people have tuning questions about handpans. So typically, including steel drums. So I've been tuning steel drums since 1993, and now handpans, I've been doing this for about 11 years, making handpans. Frequently people have questions about tuning. So just a heads up, whenever I make a handpan, I always say the first tuning is free. So if somebody buys a handpan from us, the first tuning is free. And with that being said, to some degree, there's an expectation that it might slightly go out of tune. It's like pretty much any new instrument, piano, guitar, whatever, anything with strings, something that you have to tune every once in a while. Not so much like a trumpet or a saxophone, because the tuning on those is slightly different. But like with a guitar, you would put some new strings on a guitar, and you kind of expect those strings to go out of tune slightly, right? Sometimes they go out of tune a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, or let's say you have some strings on a guitar, and you play it for a while, so then they stay in tune for a little while, right? Over a period of time, they are going to go out of tune, right? It's to be expected. You wouldn't call up that manufacturer and say, hey, man, something's wrong with these strings, they're going out of tune. Everyone kind of expects it slightly to go out of tune, right? So same thing with a handpan. They're made out of a metal. There are different varying degrees of how much a handpan may or may not go out of tune. but frequently over a period of time, and it can be from 0 to 1,000 days. At some point during that duration, it's probably going to go out of tune slightly, and so it's not unexpected for that to happen. And that's why I say to myself, as much time as I do devote to making sure that it's not going to go out of tune or drift too much, it's just the way it is. It's a metal instrument. Metal, it shrinks and it expands with the temperature and all that sort of thing. And so it can make the tuning slightly go out of tune a little bit here and there initially. The other thing too is I always bring up the subject of like a paper clip is made out of metal, and if you bend a paper clip, typically it doesn't stay bent in exactly the same spot. It kind of bends back a little bit. So you bend it and it kind of goes back a little bit. It has a little bit of a memory. So same kind of thing when you tune an instrument, it kind of wants to go back to where it was before. So that's why we try to do our best to tune it and let it sit for a couple days and tune it again, that sort of thing, multiple tunings, to allow it that chance to stay in tune as much as possible. But I don't know, did that answer your question?
Yeah, to the extent that it might vary and that there really isn't an exact science to when you need to tune it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the time that's put in before selling it matters. So if you rush it out the door and you just tune it up real fast, there's a more potential of that going out of tune than taking time with it and making sure that it's in tune and then selling it.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes that can happen when people buy things off the internet that they might not know exactly who built it or whatever. It might just kind of show up at your doorstep and one or two of the notes is out of tune where it should have probably stayed in tune. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of people from other handpan makers wanting to get their handpans tuned here.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
everybody calls up Dave.
Yeah, it happens.
And
Yeah, I'm
you-
actually
you
one of
do
the
do
few
that?
that will actually accept.
Yeah, Dave is one of the few that will.
I kind of think it's a challenge a little bit. I like it. I'm like, who made this? This is interesting. I try to figure out their style and everything. So it's interesting. But sometimes it's not really interesting. Sometimes it's a little bit disheartening because you could just tell there wasn't enough care taken, in the front. So.
Oh, we already have a question.
Okay.
Kappa Chow. I'm going to put it on the screen. It's kind of cool. I like the way he said it. Kappa Chow.
Wow, yeah, cool name.
Are handpans hard to make?
Handpans are difficult to make, absolutely. So usually if somebody's really dedicated and tries to learn how to make a handpan, it usually takes them at least a year to kind of ramp up and get up to speed with knowing how to make one. It reminds me of any kind of trade. It takes a while to learn a trade. But the tuning aspect is something where a lot of people are unfamiliar with it. So if you're not a musician at all and you don't know how to hear pitches and you're not accustomed to understanding intervals and pitches and that sort of thing, that's another set of skills that you need to learn before you even take a hammer and start pounding on an instrument to really understand music and how music works. So there's several skills that you need to know with making a handpan. So there's the tuning skills, there's the music skills, there's also just the manufacturing skills of understanding like what kind of hammers to use, what kind of tools you need to use, what kind of materials, all sorts of stuff like that. So all in all, yes, it can take up to a year or more. I would say more. Getting a handpan built and learning how to do it within a year, you're going to know the basics within a year. But to really refine your craft, it's going to be a couple years at least.
I would say, yeah, they are hard to make because I don't make them. But actually, I had a question. But actually, here's another question. How can you tell if your handpan is out of tune?
Excellent question. All right, so I've got a Strobo Tuner on my phone and on my iPad and that sort of thing. Let's see if I can pull it up here. I might not be able to. Oh, here it is. All right, this is called a Strobo Tuner. I don't know if you can see it on the screen. Audience over there, you can see it.
You see? Hey,
So it's got like a set of dials on it. And this one is a basic model, so it doesn't really show. This one works better with string instruments like ukuleles or guitars. But right now you can see on screen it's starting to show up as a D. So it's automatically detecting which note is being played over here, right? So, and these little dots, basically the way these dots work is if the dots move, if they go up or down, it means it's sharp or flat. Usually sharp means going up, flat is going down. If they stand still, that means it's in tune. So something like this can tell you that it's in or out of tune. Usually guitar tuners with a little needle, I don't really trust those very well. They're okay, sort of, if you want to get a very general idea if the note is in tune or not. But usually some kind of Strobo tuner like I just showed you. Hey, my wife just showed up. That's good news, and she's in my car, by the way, because earlier I couldn't start my car, so now it's obviously started, so I'm a happy guy. So as far as knowing if it's in tune or not, it becomes a little bit more of a difficult question, because a professional like myself can look at a Strobo tuner and really extrapolate which frequencies are in or out of tune, because each one of these notes on a handpan doesn't just have one note, it actually has 3 notes that are typically tuned to it. There's the fundamental pitch, octave, and the fifth. And if any of those are slightly out of tune, it can cause a little bit of dissonance or a little make it sound quote unquote out of tune. But if you don't have a keen ear, or if you don't have some kind of electronic device to show you exactly where those pitches are as far as sharp or flat, then you really can't tell. In general, a layperson could walk up to a piano, and if one of the notes matches a piano tone, then it's probably in tune. If it has a little dissonant sound or a little fluttering to it or something like that, you might be like, it might be a little bit out of tune. Another idea is if you do have a musical friend that's really adept with pitch, or just a really good musician, they can kind of listen to it and go, oh, there's something weird about that note, or something good about that note, either way. So it's kind of difficult in layperson's terms to explain it. But usually people know when something's out of tune. There's usually something drastic that they're like, oh, that doesn't sound quite right. So, any other questions on tuning?
There is no other. This is Kappa Chow. Kappa Chow.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Sounds almost like Cavasau.
Yeah, it does sound like Cavasau, but maybe that's not his brother, maybe?
Yeah. All right. Well, other than that, let me just explain a couple other aspects about the handpan in general. So it's made out of 2 sheets of metal. There's a top sheet and then the bottom. And the bottom has the hole in it, and that's called the GU hole, G-U. And the top has the notes on it. Some people call these tone fields. Other people call them notes. I call them tone field notes from time to time, just a kind of all-encompassing idea. And each one of these regions has pitches that are tuned to it. So like this one's a C, this one's an A, G, F, E, D, C, A, and D. This is basically a D minor scale. Some people call it the Celtic Minor scale. We call it sunset scale here. Interestingly, in the handpan world, scales started to be named. Other than like C major or D minor, people started giving them names. And so some of those names have stuck over time. I created a couple names by myself for a while there, but over time some of the names are becoming common. So Celtic Minor is probably one of the more common scales and common names that you might hear. And it's a D minor scale, but it's kind of an incomplete D minor scale. Normally a D minor scale would have a B flat in it. This one does not have a B on it, and so it skips the B and the B flat. I saw. You brought my car.
Yes, but I can't turn it off for 30 minutes.
That was Jackie.
Oh, okay, all right.
Hi, Jackie.
All right.
And she's got new hair.
Yeah,
Woo!
exactly.
Oh, you got to come over here and see the new hair. Get on live. You got to check out her parade. Yeah, you got to come on live to say hi. You got to come on this way. Jackie's new hair. Look
Jackie
at
got
it.
braids.
Yay! Wow, that looks so good. Oh my God.
Thank you. I'm
You-
free.
That sounds
Right? Okay, I'm gonna keep idling your car. Have fun with class.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye, Jackie.
All right, so sometimes handpans you'll notice too that they have more or less notes that are on the top shelf. Occasionally you'll see notes that are on the bottom shelf. When they were first created, they didn't have any notes on the bottom shelf. Over time, tuners started adding notes to the bottom shelf, so now it's to some degree commonplace to see notes on the bottom shelf as well. Pros and cons. So the pros and cons of having more or less notes. So I like the sound of this drum. It sounds great. It really has a really nice smooth sound. Right? Just really beautiful, smooth sound. If you start adding more and more notes, my experience has been that sometimes those notes start sounding a little tighter, a little more dry. Also, sometimes you hear something called crosstalk. Crosstalk is when you play one note, but you also hear another note at the same time. So you get a little crosstalk going on, which can sometimes create a little bit of dissonance. Same thing what happens when you have bottom notes. Sometimes when you add some bottom notes, sometimes it won't always work with the notes that are on top, or sometimes you get a little dissonance. Or sometimes, again, it just kind of gives it a little bit more of a different sound, like it's not quite as tight or concise as just having notes on top. So most people don't really detect some of those sounds. I'm detecting them because I'm tuning things all the time. But some people really do have a refined ear, and they might have a preference for 8 notes on top only or 9 notes on top only, but they don't want to have anything that has 13 notes because it sounds a little bit dissonant to them or something. Same thing with bottom notes. Occasionally bottom notes might have like a certain tone that's dissonant with the top note, and then it doesn't always quite work together. Usually those problems can be resolved with a good design. So a tuner that really knows and dedicates some time to designing the handpan will usually figure out the pros and cons of putting notes in certain areas on the drum. And so with a really good tuner, you should probably really don't need to worry about it too much. But I know that there are some instruments out there that are made just willy-nilly because they know that customers want them with certain notes on them, but even though those notes don't always work really well together, they just know that it's a good selling point. So just be cautious that there are pros and cons to having notes on the top, bottom, and having like a gazillion notes versus 8 or 9. Was there another question on there, Daniel?
There was not.
Oh, okay.
Actually.
Maybe that was the question.
Actually, I just wanted to say something about, I know we've been doing a series on the 4 principles. This was supposed to be that weekend, but we're going to redo it in the next couple weeks. So we're going to be talking about silence. So if you guys came on for that, we are still going to continue the
That's
4
right.
principles.
Yeah, Daniel and I have been talking about the 4 principles of music. Was it melody?
Rhythm, melody,
harmony, and silence.
And the last one's going to be silence.
Yeah, so it's going to be coming up pretty cool. I like that. It's a lot of fun.
And come into our class today.
Yeah.
We had a light crowd today, but we had Ben and
Hibernation. We've been in hibernation for years now.
Tonya, yeah, and we just reopened up, and this is exciting because I love hanging out with people and playing and jamming. Is it fun, Ben? First time in here, he's checking it out, and he just happened to come in and.
You know what? Give him an R. Let's get him an RS because
he
said you wanted to try some different ones.
Oh yeah, he has to try.
All right, so that was the powder coated one. So
I'll give
everybody out there in YouTube land, here at DIY we've got rentals like this one, just a painted top with a yellow bottom, and it basically gets the idea of how to play a handpan and gets you the opportunity to get your hands on one really quickly without spending like a gazillion dollars on something that you really don't know if you want it or not. So the rentals here at DIY is a really great option for people that are getting started. We have the RS model, which is made out of stainless steel. Kind of has that gold appearance to it. Stainless steel has typically a little bit more sustain than a powder-coated version. And I'll show you the powder-coated version in a second here. This is a Gaia model. Gaia is made from nitrided metal. So nitrided metal kind of has this grayish blue color to it. And a lot of people have questions about nitrided metal. Nitrided metal is basically regular steel that's put into an oven at about like 1,000 degrees or something, and then they take all the oxygen out of the oven, and then they put other chemicals in like nitrogen, ammonia, or something like that, and they bake it in that environment, and it creates a really hard ceramic-like finish on the steel. So the good thing is it repels rust and corrosion, that sort of thing. It also has a certain kind of quality of sound to the sound of nitrided steel. When you tune it, it's got some nice tuning properties. It tends to stay in tune pretty well. So I like nitrided metal. It does have some issues though, but that's on the kind of like the tuner side of things. The customer doesn't really need to worry about it too much. But yeah, nitrided steel is a great option. It's kind of like a middle of the road sound. So the stainless steel tends to have a long sustain, a lot of sustain, very meditative. A lot of people like that sound. The nitrided steel has a little bit like kind of a medium sustain. Still a nice sustain to it, a little bit like a medium sustain. And then our powder coated tends to have, hey Daniel, can you pass me one of the powder coated?
Powder coated.
Powder coated has a nice sound. It's really glossy. We've got a gloss on it.
Is that one? Oh, I thought that was over. Thanks.
So this is gloss powder coated. Has a little bit more of a punctuated sound. So like some people like it because it's a little bit drier. Some people don't like to have that really super long sustain. But it has pretty much all the same tuning as the other instruments as well. So it's kind of nice. This one has some bottom notes on it. We've got a F, G, and a B flat on the bottom of this one. So we call this the Luna 11. And so that's some basics about just the way the handpans are made. Have any other questions come up, Dan?
I have some weird ones.
Weird questions, all right.
Weird questions. I'm not sure if the texting is right. I have Capuchow. What is the ring of the fifth? Are you talking about
Okay,
the
well,
fifth?
the fifth, yeah. So
Oh,
the fifth
okay,
on
all
there.
right,
So
all
we
right.
can talk about the fifth. So I was mentioning before, so the way handpans are tuned, let's just take this note in general, the ding note. So it's basically made with 3 different pitches. So there's a fundamental pitch, which is the lowest sound that you hear, right? And then it's got an octave, which is the same pitch but an octave higher, twice as high. And then on the side, through the width of the note, it's got a fifth. So let's see if I can get that. So you hear that sound there? La, that's the fifth. So when you're playing this note, you're hearing all 3 of those harmonics. Primarily you're hearing the fundamental pitch. But that fifth, and it's tuned on all of these notes. Like over here, I've got an E, an octave, and a fifth. La la la, that's the fifth. Over here, that's an A, that's the fifth. Fifths are important on handpans. They really make the character of the note sound like a handpan note. And also a lot of people have learned how to use them melodically as they're playing and creating music on handpans. Not sure if that quite answers the question.
I think so. I think your son was asking. Actually, Light Yagami is giving me some talking in code.
Okay.
Can I substitute with a kitchen handpan? Or kitchen pan?
Yeah.
Let's see. Are you allowed handpans in the afterlife? That sounds like.
Oh, maybe. We'll find out.
The audience is awesome today.
Oh, good.
And then
Yeah,
Byron, this is a great one because I've been asked this all the time. Or, hey, Natalie, why does it look like a UFO?
Oh, why does it look like a UFO? Okay, why does it look like a UFO? You know, it's a good question. But let me just give you a quick answer. I've got it right here, so hold on.
Here we go. Oh, Dave's had to leave. Hi guys, how you doing? That's the placeholder for Dave. Oh, here it is.
So not everybody has the ability to show you this live, but here we are. So this is a steel drum. The steel drum was created in the island of Trinidad back in the 40s. It has that sound to it, right? Very lively sound, real bright. But this was made out of a 55-gallon barrel, and then it was just cut off from the end of the barrel. So this is just the bottom side of a 55-gallon barrel. But you can see it's got this curved surface to it, right? The other side you can see it looks like a bowl shape right there. So essentially the handpan was modeled off of a steel drum. So you can see the curved shape here, curved shape here. Normally with a steel drum you play it on the concave side, like that. Whereas the handpan you play it on the convex side. I think I got it right.
Yeah, I think so. There you go.
I think you got it. So Pan Art was the first company to create the hang drum, and what they basically did was something very super innovative. Is instead of playing the instrument like that in the bowl, they flipped it over, and now you've got this UFO shape, and they put basically this bottom shell on it also to get your hand in there to tune it. So you have to have the access port to tune it. But also this creates a nice bass tone. And that was part of their creation as well, is creating that bass tone. So it just ended up looking like a UFO just because of some of the characteristics of how the drum kind of necessarily needs to be made. You can't make a drum with flat steel because the flat steel won't allow the notes to resonate independently. So it has to be curved a little bit and have some of that interstitial space between the notes to allow each note to resonate independently.
Actually,
Wow.
it's funny because like who was the first guy that made a handpan, and you know his son or his cousin that takes pictures or something. Because you were one day there was a guy that knows steel drums, and then he came in here and he saw the handpan. He goes, "Hey, that was what the first steel drum used to look like. They used to make them like this."
yes. There was a guy from Trinidad that came in.
Yeah.
And yes, in Trinidad, they actually first started making them more like this, or where you would play it like this, and it eventually flipped
Turned
over.
into
Yeah,
the steel drum. So that's kind of, it's funny that happens because he looked at it, he goes, "Oh." He goes, "I remember this," and then
Yeah.
he goes, "That was the first steel panel." So
Yep.
funny, yeah. No, everybody's having fun. That's a cauldron. Byron says that's a cauldron.
Cauldron, yes.
Yes. And then, what is the one you are using right now?
This instrument right here is a Luna Clarity 11. It's powder coated. I think I mentioned that just a second ago. And over here we've got the Gaia, which is nitrided. Over here we've got a stainless steel Oris.
Cool.
So we usually tune them all to the same scale. We usually tune them all to a D minor sunset scale, which a lot of people know it as Celtic Minor. We found that it's like one of the best scales people respond to. I used to have a wall full of handpans here at the store, and people would come in and typically get very confused. Weren't always sure which one they wanted to get because they had so many options. But on the other hand, too, I would literally say about 80% or more people, even if they had a wall of instruments, they would walk up to this D minor and say, "Oh, I really like this one," and we wouldn't give them any prompting or anything like that. People just tend to gravitate towards the D minor scale for some reason. So that's the one we've been going with. We do offer custom scales, so if anybody does want to have a custom scale, we do offer custom scales.
And I like that we have one scale, is because that's why we can have these classes.
Yep.
Because all our handpans we can all play together, and I think that's important. You know, we talked about this in the 4 principles. There's the sound healing or learning for yourself, and then there's the sharing, which is the we, and that's what we like to do.
That's
share.
right.
So.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions from the live audience?
Live audience, Ben, Tanya.
Do you have any other pans with different scales in the store?
Actually, this one's slightly
Yeah, actually,
different.
yeah, we
This one is a Equinox Scale.
Oh,
Has a really lovely sound, a little bit higher in register than the others. The D minor is a little bit lower, but I really like that one. It's a great sounding scale. There's some, basically I've noticed that people really connect with basically 3 different scales that I've noticed most. Obviously the Celtic Minor, which is our sunset scale, which is a D minor, or all sorts of variations on the D minor. Let's put it that way. Variations on the D minor scale. There's one called the Kurd. Some people like the Kurd scale. Hijaz is very popular, and Pygmy is very popular. So probably those 3 or 4 are very popular scales that people like. The Pygmy has kind of a minor sound to it. It's one of those things where you can't quite put your finger on it. You're like, where did this scale come from? It doesn't sound major, it doesn't quite sound minor. It's kind of ambiguous. So I think that's why people like it, because it does have this interesting nebulous sound to it. The Hijaz has a very Middle Eastern sound, a very Persian sound. So if you like that Persian sound, the Hijaz is a really great scale for that. And then the Kurd and the Sunset and the Celtic Minor, those are all kind of variations on the D minor theme, and they have slight little changes here and there between the different scales that are in D minor.
this one seems to have kind of like a melancholic tone.
Sure, yeah. It's funny the terms we come up, yeah, because everyone has like a slightly different.
like how it makes them feel.
Yeah, how it makes you
know,
feel.
You know, all that other stuff.
It's
So.
down, it's like a,
Yeah.
it's melodic, but it's also like down.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And then even on our bottom note pans, you know, if you guys have one of those, Dave, I get the privilege of watching Dave make his lessons. And,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And basically, he was showing how you make different scales, like with the different pans. Like we have a D minor pan, but on the RS it has 8 different scales. So because it has the bottom notes, which is
sure,
awesome.
yeah.
So yeah, it's fun.
Yep. So, if anybody else has any more questions about handpans, how they're made, tuned, that sort of thing, feel free to ask. We're going to be having more classes coming up in the future. Hopefully, we're going to have more, at least one in-person class per month. I think
Per
that's
month.
kind of the plan.
Yeah, that's the plan.
We used to do, every 2 weeks we used to have an in-person class here at DII. So we're trying to ramp that back up. But now we're trying to offer online and in-person classes here at DII to really cover all the bases. So if you have any questions for us, go to our website, davesislandinstruments.com. You can also email us or give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Like I said before, we do all sorts of handpans with different kind of colors and sounds. So we do the powder-coated, nitrided, and the stainless steel. So we have like a variety pack of instruments that we can offer here. So that's it. If you have any questions, let us know.
I want to remind people about, we do have our community. If you guys are interested in more video lessons, we have the DII community, which you guys can check out. Also, someone asked the question on making handpans, and right now we're currently working on a few videos. We have an old video from Dave, which was about steel pans. People have been asking about that. Also, he has. We're working on how to make a handpan video. One where he actually taught somebody to do it and film the whole thing, and then we'll probably work on one just on a basis. So stay tuned for that if you guys want to learn how to make handpans. A lot of people have been asking about that.
Yep.
And also, summer is coming, and we do have some handpans in stock, which is very rare. Dave has been working hard to have handpans in supply. So if you guys are been looking for a handpan, this might be a good time, because I know supply has been very low, and we have some great handpans here. Come and check it out. So.
Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah.
The mystery.
The mystery is the mystery. Whoa.
Yeah, there he is.
There it is. Yeah. I'm talking.
All right, big thanks to you guys who came in person today. Thank
Tanya
you so much for being
and
here.
Ben in the house.
Yep.
Yes.
Wonderful to have you, and we'll see you guys all out there next time. Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye. Oh wait, I have to hit this. Finish.